everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this week's book tour interview. Today's guest is author Barb Jones, here to talk about her novel, The Devil Inside, a Gothic psychological horror that blends family secrets, supernatural possession, and true crime history, with echoes of H.H. Holmes and a chilling exploration of how evil can endure across generations. This is a story that promises to keep readers questioning what lies beneath the surface. Hi, Barb, and thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, hello. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to the interview. You very kindly agreed to answer some questions for me. So I'd like to start by asking you about the title of The Devil Inside. It immediately suggests to me that the greatest horrors may come from within rather than from outside forces. What first sparked the idea for this?
Basically, I've always been fascinated with the idea that things that we fear aren't always monsters hiding in the dark. Sometimes they're parts of ourselves that we don't fully understand. Um, so what I did is I took a look at the supernatural elements and the emotional struggles that people faced, especially the victims of H.H. Holmes. And I wanted to explore how, the guilt and the grief and family history and hidden truths and secrets um, can just be as frightening as like the supernatural world.
hmm Now, in your book, the character Julie returns to her family cabin. She's expecting peace and quiet, but finds herself confronted by memories that aren't her own. What drew you to these themes of inheritance and the idea that the past can continue to shape our present?
Well, I think every family has stories that get passed down, whether
hmm
they're good stories or the bad stories, the nightmares. Sometimes people talk about those stories openly, and sometimes they talk about it in silence. And
hmm
those stories, which are part of our history, kind of shape who we are and who we become, whether we realize it or not. So Julie's journey kind of opens up the door to the buried secrets that refuse to stay buried. So I wanted to explore that idea with healing and that it often confronts with the past instead of running from it. So I took it to a
And
whole different level and it made, the storyline sometimes uncomfortable or frightening for the readers because you're
mhm.
diving into the psychological trauma.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely exploration of that there. And it also weaves elements of true crime into the supernatural elements through the connection to H.H. Holmes. What inspired you to incorporate such a notorious historical figure into the story?
H.H. Holmes is probably one of my favorite serial killers in history. So I know that sounds weird, but he's just a genius when it came to all of the manipulation he could do to people, whether it be with fraudulent activities, the murders, the crime itself, the psychological horror. So he was a complex man, and I loved his history and I loved the story behind him and Murder Castle. So weaving him into the story, I kind of wanted to blur the line between supernatural fiction and documented history. So every book that's out there on H.H. Holmes is usually just a retelling of what
Mhm.
he had done. I wanted to take it to a whole different level by blending the history into the supernatural world and creating like fictional elements that would make it believable and, let readers kind of see where history started and where it ended, along
Mhm.
with their imagination growing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at the book and approach it. Now, you've got a character called Frank in the story who's a scientist who believes in evidence and rational explanations. How important was it for you to explore the tension between science and the supernatural?
I think both sides of the spectrum actually work together. So if you look at one of the ways that you can look at Frank is he represents all of us. We want evidence in order to understand something supernatural. So it was a way to take a character and combine the scientific world with the supernatural world. It allowed my readers to experience the mystery behind it, while trying to explain things logically. Because like imagine a bump in the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear something, but logically you want to find out what it is. That's the first step. And you always go to something that makes sense and materialistic. So I wanted to combine that. And being a supernatural thriller and horror author, I had a way to combine both worlds. And so I made Frank that character to be the grounded one.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. It works wonderfully well. Now, as well as The Devil Inside, readers can find several of your other books through Chapters and Chai and the Book Dragon website. Could you give us a brief overview of your other titles and what readers can expect from them?
So my biggest flagship series is Blood Prophecy. That
Mm-hmm.
expands over 2 trilogies and novellas. It's a massive universe. Um, my other series is the Heaven and Hell series, which focuses more on your demons and angels. It's a smaller universe, but it is just as complex. So I like to take the elements of supernatural thrillers and horror and kind of combine them all into one, whether it presents as dark fantasy or fiction or murder, mystery. It has everything. So that's a little bit about my worlds. But yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that and thank you for answering my questions. It's been really wonderful discussing your work with you. Now, if our viewers would like to meet Barb in person, she'll be joining us all the way from Florida at Chapters and Chai on Stockton-on-Tees High Street on Saturday, the 4th of July, for a book signing between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. That day is particularly special as it also happens to be the Book Dragon's 4th birthday. Barb will also be hosting an exclusive private event for Book Dragon members at Chapters and Chai on Sunday, the 5th of July, between 12 and 2 p.m., where she'll be discussing marketing and promotion for authors. In addition, a limited number of private 30-minute one-to-one sessions will be available to book at Chapters and Chai between 3 and 5 p.m. for the very special price of just £10. We'd love to see you there. Thank you again for your time, Barb. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.